All right, my friends. Now that the DR is over, the deferred resignation, now what? What are the next steps? For those of you who are still around, who are still federal employees, I want to give you a little bit of hope. All right. And let me go back a few to help you understand what's about to happen within the federal government, how you can deal with it, and kind of have a healthy perspective on everything that's going on. So going back in my career, I've been a part of the public sector since the beginning, and I've been laid off 4.5 times. Yeah, and the half is an actual time as well. But I've been laid off a lot because of what I do. In the past, I was a lot in an HR role of doing training and speaking and putting together programs and training programs, et cetera, et cetera. And those are the first to go. Right. So my wife and I got really used to me being laid off. And I remember one time I was working for Intel, and our whole team was laid off. We were working on a product called Vive, and that product was something like the Fire Stick or like Apple TV, something along those. I mean, the earlier versions of that, but Intel was creating their own, and I was on that team. 1 year to the day that I was hired, they brought me in and said, yeah, we're laying off the whole team. And guess what they did? They did a deferred resignation. They did exactly what they just did to federal employees. They said, we're laying you off, but we're giving you this many weeks to find another job, and we'll just pay you. Don't worry about coming into work. Just go find another job. And I went and found another job. But during that time, when that happened, our whole team, other people hadn't been laid off before, and they were freaking out. I remember one guy came into my cubicle, and he was just in tears. He said, I'm married. I have 2 kids. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to be able to, provide for my family. And I said, no, it's okay. You will. You will probably wind up better than Intel, better than your job right now. You'll probably wind up better. And he did. He went on, and it was great for him. So for those who have taken the deferred resignation, I'll say this. You will probably wind up in a better spot overall. That is what I found after having been laid off many times myself and having had my colleagues laid off. They are usually in a better spot. Now, for those of you who have survived, and I've been on that end as well, where there have been layoffs, and I'm the one who survived and I'm still there, but a lot of people are gone and there's a lot of restructuring going on. I've been there, and it's a little worrisome. Because you think, okay, what's next? Are they going to come out with more stuff? Am I going to be laid off? Are they going to find my position not needed anymore? Am I going to have to take on more responsibilities that I don't want to take on? My colleagues are gone. My friends who I've been hanging around for years with, they're gone. What's the dynamics? What if I get a manager that I don't like? What happens then, right? There are so many questions that are happening probably in your mind right now. For those of you who are staying with the federal government, I don't blame you. And I've felt what you feel. I know exactly what it's like, and I've experienced this many times. And my message to you is, it's going to be okay. That's my first message. Again, just like those who have taken the deferred resignation or are retiring and looking for another job, it's going to be okay, and it's going to work out. You have to make it happen, and you have to act to make it happen, but it'll be okay. I want to promise you that. I mean, I can't promise you that, but at the same time, almost always it works out better. Another thing I'll say as well, And this is the difference between working for the government and working for the private sector, is that in the past, one of the reasons you may have your job, having worked for NASA for many years and interacted with federal employees intimately, I know that some people, not everyone by any means, but some people have their job because they not only like what they do or tolerate what they do, but they're going to be there forever. It's guaranteed employment forever, right? So some of you may have been in your job because of that. I remember one guy, he said, you know, and I distinctly remember him saying, you know, I'm getting this other job. I honestly don't care where I go until I'm just going to keep working for NASA until I retire. And then I'm done. So wherever they want to have me, I'll just go there. I get that. In the private sector, you don't get that. You don't get that luxury of just saying, you know what, I'll just hang out till my retirement and go do that. Not typically. There are positions like that, but not typically. In the federal government, there have been though. So some of you have had that mindset. You can't anymore. And that's the second thing I want to say, is you can't have that mindset anymore. And I want to say this gently and as respectfully at the same time. You can't have the mindset of, I'm going to have a job until I retire. You need to be of the mindset that I am accountable for my job, let me rephrase that, if I may. There's a difference between work and a job. And I've drilled this into my kids. I have 8 kids and I've drilled this into every single one of them. There's a huge difference between work and a job. A job is something you go do, fulfill for someone else. Your job is to go fulfill for someone else, right? You take a position, a job. Your work is you. Your work is what you do. It doesn't matter who you're with or if you're doing it on your own business, but that's your work. I want you to transition from a job mentality to a work mentality. You are accountable for your work, whether it's with the federal government or whether it is with someone else. You are accountable for your work. It's a different way of thinking. No longer can you say, the government will provide this for me. It will have to be, I am going to make sure I provide it for me and my family. Whether it's with the federal government, whether it's with someone else, I am the one who is accountable. Now, and I do this all the time with my in-person workshops. So some of you may have heard me say this before, but what is the difference between responsibility and accountability? Think about that. We use those two terms interchangeably all the time, don't we? Responsibility, accountability. And very, very, very few people can correctly articulate the difference between responsibility and accountability, although there's a big difference between the two. And let me just give you the essence of the difference. With accountability, the consequence lies with that person. So for example, I am accountable to eat. If I don't eat, I die. There you go. That's it, right? If I don't eat, no one else dies. But if I eat healthy in a healthy way, I also get the consequence, good or bad. I get the consequence of that, right? The direct consequence. Now, if I give that responsibility to someone else for me to eat healthy in a healthy way, then I give that to them, but I'm still accountable, right? But I give that to them to plan my meals, to say, okay, I'm going on a diet, plan my meals for me, and whatever you do, whatever you say, I'll just do, or whatever you give me, I'll do. So I give the responsibility to them. But if they mess up, I'm still accountable. All right. So that's the difference between responsibility and accountability. It's almost the same as the difference between a job and work. With a job, you give the responsibility for your employment, for you bringing home money, to someone else almost, right? And If if they do something that you don't like a designated or a deferred resignation, you are still accountable. You are still accountable for employment, for bringing home money. Whereas I think a lot of people have just kind of put that accountability, it's called subsuming accountability. They have let the government, and I say the government, but an employer, let's call it that, okay? An employer, which happens to be the government, to subsume the accountability of their job, of their work, of making sure that they get paid. We can't do that. It's a different mentality that you really have to jump into. It's a little bit of a hard transition, but I think innately we all understand the difference. And it's kind of a stepping up to the plate moment. Here it is. You are accountable for your work now. Will there be layoffs in the future? I can almost guarantee it, right? We've all heard it. We all know that there will probably be layoffs / rifts. They're the same thing. Rifts, layoffs, they're the same thing. Will it happen? Yeah, it's going to happen. Will whole departments be gone? Well, we've already seen that, haven't we? We already see in the news where departments are starting to be disbanded, and some of their work, the work that they feel is valuable, being transferred to another agency or another department. Your work groups, will they be disbanded or change or whatever it is? Yeah. And if you don't like it, you are accountable for your work. If you don't like it, then do you suffer it? Or do you go make a life where you love your work? Because I'll tell you, having a job that you don't like, that you spend most of your waking hours at, that you don't like, is crushing. It is. But if you like your work, what you do right now, you can almost always find something else, somewhere else, if you need to, that has the same or very similar work to do. So I want to give you hope. Yes, we will have to change the way we think about things. Yes, we have to change our mentality around this a little bit, but it's okay, because we need to make the switch. We need to understand that we are accountable for that work, for the work, not as much for the job. So my message is one of hope. Things will change. You have to be prepared for it. Be prepared as quickly as you can. And I'm going to throw this one last thing in here real quickly. I've watched hundreds, even thousands of people over the last week freak out and worry and stress, appropriately stress. I 100% am with you of why you would do that. However, I have watched another group of people who had already figured out their retirement, whether they're close to retirement and what they're going to do, or if they're further away from retirement, they have a plan already of how to get to the retirement that they want to. Those people who have that figured out, when this deferred resignation came along, they have one variable to figure out. And that's it. One variable. All they had to figure out is, what am I going to do with this? Can I do it? Should I do it? Okay, done. They're not figuring out, oh my goodness, this is going to mess up my retirement. This is going to mess up. Okay, how do I do this? All that's taken care of for them. So the lesson I learned from this that hit hard for me, watching others, is the sooner you can figure out your retirement, whether you are 20 years from retirement or 20 days, the sooner you can figure that out, that's one less variable. That's one huge less variable that you have to deal with when the next thing happens, and the next thing will happen. Guaranteed. Something is going to happen. So figure that piece out so you don't have to be stressing a double, triple, quadruple amount more next time. For those of you who have been on the journey with me with federal retirement and employment overall, I'm glad you're here. Let's keep talking. Let's keep supporting each other. Let's keep giving each other hope. And here's to more changes, but better things ahead. Thanks for being here.